Michael, you are live in 3, 2, 1.
President Covfefe, our beloved troll-in-chief, has reportedly requested a military parade down Pennsylvania Avenue for either Memorial Day or Independence Day or Veterans Day. The left and anti-Trump Republicans, historically ignorant, frequently wrong, but never in doubt, insist that honoring our military is unprecedented and will destroy the republic. We will analyze the illustrious history of military parades in the United States and how Trump should stage it. Then, Elisha Krauss and Erielle Davidson join to discuss breaking news. Last night, Fox News released a shocking report on texts between FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, showing that James Comey, former FBI director, ordered the two agents to prepare an update on ongoing investigations because, quote, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing, which shows that Barack Obama was lying through his teeth, surprise, surprise, when he said on national television that he did not interfere with the Attorney General or FBI directors about pending investigations. Then, variations on a theme, Trey Gowdy has all but admitted that the source of information passed to Hillary's State Department, to be passed to dossier Arthur Christopher Steele, to be passed to Barack Obama's FBI, was none other than Clinton hatchet man Sid Blumenthal, meaning that the entire Russia collusion investigation circus may have likely been a charade funded, orchestrated, and executed by Clinton cronies to undermine Trump's campaign. Shocking, isn't it? And in the most important news, Canada's Prime Minister Kendall, Justin Trudeau, wants to change the word mankind to peoplekind because he's illiterate. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. That's a lot. That's a lot to get to. There is so much, and this is very important because everybody is so dead certain they're making these great historical claims and they don't really know anything about what they're talking about. So we'll clear that up a little bit. But first, look, you saw I interviewed yesterday myself from the future, the 200th episode, Michael, and things don't look very good. The trouble here, of course, is we broadcast from the Ben Shapiro broom closet. That's very nice. They keep promising they're going to send me a paycheck at some point, but we'll see what that happens. The one real nice benefit, though, is sometimes we get wonderful sponsors who will feed me and make sure that I don't become emaciated, and they can feed you too. This is great. We're very happy to welcome a new sponsor today to help keep the lights on maybe a day or two longer, Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the leading meal kit delivery service in the U.S., and while many people know what they do, very often they don't know about the types of meals that you can eat when you cook with Blue Apron. So you think, well, who knows, that some meals that come, it's probably very similar, it's all the same stuff. No way. You get strip steaks with potatoes, spicy maple collard greens, a steakhouse-inspired favorite with a delicious twist, chili-infused maple syrup. With incredible ingredients and chef-designed recipes, Blue Apron lets you see what the power of food can do. And by the way, they're really easy to prepare. If you're like me, you just ask sweet little Elisa to prepare it, and then it comes out very delicious and good. And you can have that power too. Sweet little Elisa is not included though with your Blue Apron subscription. So what do you get? You get convenience and variety. Blue Apron delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and step-by-step recipes right to your door that can be cooked in under 45 minutes. The menu changes every single week based on what's in season and is designed by Blue Apron's in-house culinary team. You are not going to see these recipes repeated. You are signing up for a culinary experience that will keep changing and keep growing. It's got a lot of flexibility. Blue Apron offers 12 new recipes each week. Customers can pick 2, 3, or 4 recipes based on what fits their schedule. Obviously, you got to go for the 4. That's kind of what I recommend. You get the 4, maybe you have 1 at a time, maybe you have 2 at a time, maybe you have 3. I don't know, it depends what kind of night it is. High quality food. Blue Apron sends only non-GMO ingredients and meat with no added hormones. If I were left to my own druthers, I'd probably just eat hormones. I'd probably just be in like the gutter eating hormones out of the garbage. Luckily, Blue Apron clears that up. You get some healthier food and not all of that artificial stuff that's probably not very good for you. This is really good stuff. All of my friends are using it. It is so good. Sweet little Elisa has already planned out what the menus are going to look like on it, because if I turn on the stove, I think probably all of Ventura Boulevard will explode. The call to action here is that you need to go to blueapron.com/Covfefe. Do not just hear about these wonderful recipes. Do not just hear, oh, that sounds nice. Well, Michael can enjoy good food. Don't do it. You have an opportunity here. If you go to blueapron.com/Covfefe, Michael Knowles Show listeners will get $30 off your first order. Check it out. Check out this week's menu. Get $30 off. I'm giving you free food. Don't say I never did anything for you. blueapron.com/Covfefe. What is it, Marshall?
blueapron.com/Covfefe.
/Covfefe. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. All right, the president is destroying the country. Did you know that? He's destroying the country again. We're all going to die. And I know you already died from tax reform and deregulation and moving our embassy in Israel to the capital of Israel and appointing an originalist to the Supreme Court and reinstituting the Mexico City policy and pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. You zombie, you undead drone, wandering through the world, suffering death after death, but relentlessly existing. The new mainstream media hysteria is that President Trump wants to have a military parade. I wish I had pearls on that I could clutch and grab. It's so horrible. Here is Rear Admiral John Kirby, who was the State Department spokesman under Barack Obama, explaining why he hates the parade idea.
Trump watched as thousands of troops marched down the Champs-Élysées. But that annual parade isn't even the world's biggest. In Moscow, the Victory Day Parade is held every May the 9th to commemorate the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany.
We can cut it here and we'll fire the entire control room. The trouble with this analysis, Kirby comes out and he says, this isn't what we do in America. It's okay, we like the military, but we don't parade our troops down the streets. We don't need to show other people our tanks or our missiles. It's un-American. It's what people do in other countries and dictatorships. And the military hates it and the country hates it, and we've never seen it before and it's awful. The trouble with that analysis, and I've heard this repeated ad nauseum all morning, is that it isn't true. I understand people say, it reminds me of Soviet Russia. Oh, it reminds me of the North Korea. Okay, yes, other places have military parades too. The United States has regularly paraded soldiers and tanks and missiles through the streets of the capital and other cities for over 150 years. Just a quick history of these. After the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson held a military parade of 145,000 Union soldiers parading down Pennsylvania Avenue. The procession, known as the Grand Review of the Armies, took place over 2 days, May 23rd and 24th, 3 years and 6 days before the first Memorial Day was celebrated. After World War I, the U.S. held military parades in New York, D.C., countless other cities to greet doughboys as they returned from the battlefield. That's what sweet little Lisa calls me, by the way, as a doughboy. I don't think it's for the same reason. General Blackjack Pershing led the parade of thousands of soldiers through the streets of New York on September 10th, 1919, and then he led another parade of thousands of soldiers through the streets of D.C. about a week later. We also had military parades in 1942 and 1946. The 1942 parade in New York lasted for more than 11 hours. It was attended by 2 million people. That parade even featured a gigantic bust of Franklin Roosevelt, of the president. They pulled a gigantic head of FDR down the street in the 1942 parade. And yet we're told to have a little military parade in America today would be awful. It would be Trump becoming a dictator. As far as I can tell, the current preparations don't include a gigantic Trump head on a float, but who knows, things could change. In 1946, a military parade was held in New York to celebrate the Allied victory in World War II. The 1946 parade saw some of the largest self-propelled howitzers in the entire army rolling down the streets of New York, tanks rolling down the streets of New York. In 1953, at President Eisenhower's first inauguration, another event where we're commemorating the inauguration, there were 73 bands, 59 floats, and lots of military assets, including an 85-ton atomic cannon that could fire a shell 20 miles. Tanks as far as the eye could see rolled through Washington. Guess what happened 4 years later? And again, this wasn't to celebrate a particular victory in a war. This wasn't to celebrate something else other than this guy's inauguration. At Eisenhower's second inauguration, thousands of troops marched 3 miles down Washington with countless tanks rolling alongside. Plus, the 69-foot-long Redstone, which was the first ballistic missile successfully fired by the United States. Missiles, tanks, thousands and thousands of troops all marching down the road. 4 years later, so we had 53, 57, now in 1961, at JFK's inauguration, dozens of missiles were paraded in front of the world, including the Nike Zeus, which was the first missile that could intercept ballistic missiles. So we're being told now by the left and Trump critics and former Obama administration officials, we don't need to show our military equipment off. We would never do that. It would be such a step backward, so small-minded of the United States if we ever showed off our military equipment. We've been doing it for well over a century. We've been doing it regularly. We did it 53, 57, 61. We did it in 4-year intervals for a while. And that's not just missiles. During the JFK parade, even huge Navy boats were towed down Pennsylvania Avenue with Kennedy aboard, waving to the throngs on boats that specifically resembled the one that he himself commanded in World War II. In more recent history, in 1991, President George H.W. Bush held a massive military parade in Washington. Here's the coverage then.
Good evening. Well, already they are saying tonight it was the biggest military celebration in the nation's capital since World War II, as Washington today honored the U.S. servicemen and women who fought in the Gulf War, both those who returned and those who died. 200,000 enthusiastic spectators watched a parade of troops and their weapons, all part of the national victory celebration. Eric Engberg has our report.
It was a day for saying thank you to heroes. The president choked back tears several times as he spoke directly to loved ones of those who died. On the wide boulevards just a few blocks from the White House, 8,000 Desert Storm troops were moving out. And once again, it was General Norman Schwarzkopf who set the cadence, leading the way as far as the presidential box, where he spent the rest of the parade as cheerleader and spotter for a clearly delighted George Bush. So much military hardware was moving that at times it appeared Washington was under attack.
We're here just to say thank you and to celebrate our victory, but to say thank you to all the men and women who serve in the armed forces.
I think that this is a wonderful occasion, but we don't want it to happen again because we don't want war.
Wonderful. And of course that's the sentiment. We don't want war. We don't want, but we want to honor the service and the sacrifice of our troops. Tanks rolling through Washington, D.C. We're now being told that the streets would all crack if we drove tanks down them. We've done this plenty of times and it's just fine. It looked like Washington was under attack, but that's what these parades look like. So after that war, after the Persian Gulf War, Iraq Part 1, tributes were held nearly every day to welcome home troops, though the largest celebrations were held in New York and D.C. Yes, there's plenty of precedent for this. Don't get that out of your mind. Nevertheless, many leftist commentators still object. Douglas Brinkley, a presidential historian and insufferable lefty, said on CNN, quote, "I don't think there's a lack of love and respect for our armed forces in the United States." Give me a break, but we'll get to that later. What are they going to do? Stand there while Donald Trump waves at them? It smacks of something you see in a totalitarian country, unless there's a genuine, earnest reason to be doing it. Now, the historian Wilfred McClay observed in 2006 that Douglas Brinkley has failed to, quote, put forward a single memorable idea, a single original analysis, or a single lapidary phrase. Likewise, the author Bill Bryson has called Brinkley a minor American academic and sometime critic whose powers of observation and generosity of spirit would fit comfortably into a proton and still leave room for an echo. Absolutely right. Even the sentiment is totally wrong, and even on the historical points he's making, they're just not true. The White House, for its part, also rejects the notion that a military parade is totalitarian, saying that it would be a celebration of the men and women who give us freedom, who protect our freedom. That's the opposite of a totalitarian government, they say, and that's true. Brinkley says we should only have parades when there's a genuine, earnest reason to be doing it. Sure. Now, by the way, this wasn't always the case in the middle of the century. We had 3 back-to-back, 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, that were not being done earnestly to celebrate some war victory or something, though clearly there was a strategic purpose. It was to frighten our enemies. It was to frighten the Soviet Union. Just as today we have enemies that we could reasonably frighten and show off our bigger buttons. That's exactly why, though, there has been a groundswell in support in recent years for a military parade, like the one we're talking about, to honor veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Why shouldn't we honor them? The last military parade we held in Washington was to honor the veterans of the last major war we concluded, but the veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan, who served their country admirably after the September 11th terrorist attacks, They've never had their own parade. They've never had that moment. That's why even Chuck Schumer has called for this parade. In 2014, Schumer held a press conference, and I know this is shocking because the most dangerous place in the world, as we all know, is not in the Middle East, on the fighting grounds, or in the air or on the sea. It's the space between Chuck Schumer and a television camera. I digress. Schumer held a press conference on Broadway at Bowling Green, right by statues of George Washington, where Washington gave his farewell to the troops, and he said, "With the war in Afghanistan winding down, now is the time to keep with long-standing American tradition and kick off a campaign for the first New York City Welcome Home Parade for troops that served in Iraq and Afghanistan." For the first. That implies multiple parades that he's suggesting. He goes on, "With the completion of the Afghanistan combat mission expected at the end of this year, and with Iraq's official end far behind us, it's time for New York to stake its claim and for the Department of Defense to join in planning this Welcome Home celebration." Then, joining the chorus of calls for a military parade to honor those veterans came none other than New York's Bolshevik mayor, Bill de Blasio. Even Bill de Blasio said, quote, "The brave men and women who have selflessly served our nation with courage and skill in Iraq and Afghanistan deserve a recognition for their sacrifice. I stand with Senator Schumer in his call for a parade to honor our veteran heroes, and New York City would be proud to host this important event." I'm glad we all agree. I'm glad you agree, Chuck, and I'm glad you agree, Bill, and I fully expect you to keep your mouth shut while President Trump plans the new one. So what happened? Why no parade? There's a point here. There's no parade because the war in Afghanistan was still basically in full swing. By that time, 75% of U.S. casualties in Afghanistan had occurred under Barack Obama's watch. That was in 2014, 2015. Barack Obama, who insisted on restarting a war that we'd already won because he had to balance out his vocal criticism of the Iraq War, which he recklessly chose to lose because his opposition to Iraq was central to his winning the Democratic nomination over Hillary Clinton. The Defense Department under Barack Obama felt it would not look good to host a parade for military veterans until the war in Afghanistan was completed. The trouble is that our current operations in Afghanistan have increasingly become a stabilizing mission, well, what might be called a war of empire. So they're still fighting, but the fear of pulling U.S. troops out is that the country will then fall into disarray again and provide a safe haven for terrorists who have to go right back in, and we know it was already doing that for the years before September 11th, which is the reason we had to intervene in the first place. So if that's the kind of war that we're engaged in, then there can be no clear moment of victory, no mission accomplished banner. It might look like Korea. We've had troops stationed in Korea to prevent the outbreak of new violence for 61 years. Afghanistan is the longest war we have ever engaged in. 16 years and counting, #1 on the list. After that, that's followed by the Moro Rebellion, which is a war that absolutely no one knows about. It was one in which Muslim tribes living in the southern Philippines attacked U.S. troops after the U.S. government told them that they would continue their old protectorate relationship with Spain. We got bogged down into that rebellion for 14 years. That's followed by the Northwest Indian War at 10 years, the Iraq War at 8.8, Revolutionary War at 8.4, Vietnam at 8.1, the Second Seminole War at 6.7, the First Barbary War at 4.1, the Civil War at 4, and World War II at 3.7. It's interesting to note that a full 40% of those wars, possibly more if you count the war against ISIS separately, a full 40% of the longest wars in U.S. history have been defending against Muslim forces, something that isn't talked about very much, and it's a strange quirk of U.S. history. Now, that is by no means a list of the deadliest wars in U.S. history. That list goes Civil War, World War II, World War I, Vietnam, Korea, the Revolution, 1812, Mexican-American War, Iraq and Afghanistan combined as one conflict, and the Philippine-American War. So, what do we do about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Part of the reason we haven't had a parade is that they've been so politicized by the left since the beginning, and we might keep troops in Afghanistan for decades. We might not pull all of them out right away. So, can we honor the veterans who signed up to protect our freedom after the worst terrorist attack on American soil on September 11, 2001? We have parades and demonstrations for a lot of other things. I'll just refresh your memory of the last year. Pussy hats, gay pride, Super Bowl, there are a lot of parades. Actually, that Super Bowl parade, I think it's just when they torched Philadelphia, but that's a separate demonstration. Is it really so awful to celebrate and thank our troops? Reports indicate that President Trump is considering hosting the parade on Memorial Day or the 4th of July or Veterans Day. Not on a random Tuesday, not just on his birthday or something like that. All of the reports say he's got those dates picked out for the parade. Of the three, Veterans Day seems like the best time to me. That's a time when we're already honoring the troops. Memorial Day honors fallen soldiers, but we want to honor all of the thanklessly served in Iraq and Afghanistan. 4th of July celebrates the founding of our country. Veterans Day seems like the right way to do it. If it's done right, not only will it not be an unprecedented threat to the Republic or whatever they're saying it is, it will be admirable and long overdue. Comfortable Americans have had the privilege of keeping war out of their minds for the most part since 9/11. Because of the brave men and women who answered the call of duty and defended our freedom overseas. A parade through the streets of Washington, D.C. to honor them, if done right, could go a long way toward focusing Americans' attention on just what our country has been doing in Iraq and Afghanistan, and to remind us that our freedom doesn't come free, but instead has been purchased at a high cost, that we are so privileged in this country that most of the time we don't even have to notice that cost. And Donald Trump, in suggesting this military parade, which is in well keeping with U.S. tradition, seems to be provoking the left into attacking our military like lunatics. It's a really bad look for them. Donald Trump is very good at putting his adversaries into a corner and making them defend the indefensible, making their true colors shine through. It looks like what's happening here. Fine by me. Seems like a lot of good things are being accomplished in it. Okay, we've got to get to our panel. We have a lovely panel today. It's an all-ladies panel. It's much more beautiful than we usually have. We have Jacob. We pluck him off the sidewalks or something. You got an all-ladies panel today of Erielle Davidson and Elisha Krauss. But first, before we can get to them, I've got to talk about man things. We've got this lady panel. Actually, I guess they make products for women too, but I use this every morning. It is Dollar Shave Club. You hear me talk about it a lot. I use it all the time. It's the best razor I've ever used. And I don't skimp on razors. I get nice razors, and usually as gifts or something. And I never go to the pharmacy. I never try to replace the blades. I don't want to do that. I am a millennial. I do not want to move. I want to move the least amount that I possibly can. I don't want to get ripped off. I want things to be mailed to me and make it easy. Dollar Shave Club does just that. So you hear me talk about my razor. It's the best razor I've ever used. What's really nice too is that Dr. Carver's shave butter. I don't use that crazy shaving, like the puffy stuff you put on your face. I don't use shave gel because I have some self-respect. I'm not gonna put that on my face. But the shave butter is really, really nice. I am never gonna give up my membership. In fact, I'm adding even more DSC products to my daily routine. So Dollar Shave Club makes products for your hair, face, skin, shower, everything you need. And it's all their own original stuff. They use only the finest premium ingredients. They deliver it to you just like they do their razors. No more trips to the store, no more, you're looking for the aisle of, are the razors down this aisle, and you go down the wrong aisle. If you're a man, you start feeling very weird about that, and you look, did anyone see me? I feel icky being here? Don't do that. Come on, save yourself the hassle. I use Dollar Shave Club for almost everything. They have razors, body cleanser, hair gel. They even have, this is a little difficult to talk about on the show. In Europe, they're clean. They have this product called a bidet. It's an invention that they use. Americans don't really use. It makes you feel a little fresh at times when you might not be feeling the freshest. Helps you clean places on your body where the sun don't shine. Well, Dollar Shave Club has lovely wipes to cleanse that derriere of yours, and it has you covered head to toe. So now is a great time to give Dollar Shave Club a try. You get your first month of their best razor along with travel size versions of shave butter, body cleanser, and yes, even that derriere cleanser for just $5. This is basically free. You would be a fool not to do it. Get it right now. It's just the razor is so good. All of the products are really good. After that, replacement cartridges ship for just a few bucks a month. You never have to worry about it. It is the DSC Starter Set. Get yours for just $5 exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/Covfefe, C-O-V-F-E-F-E. That is dollarshaveclub.com/Covfefe. Marshall, what is it?
dollarshaveclub.com/Covfefe.
dollarshaveclub.com/Covfefe. That's what it is. All right, let's get to this panel. Oh, God, Marshall, you monster. Are you kidding me? I have to sign off. We didn't even get to talk about the parades. You are a sick sadist. That is so awful. Well, don't blame me, guys. Blame Marshall. We have got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. I think I already said goodbye to YouTube when they started censoring all of my videos a few weeks ago and cutting off our live streams. That's a separate point. At this point, by the way, basically all of my episodes are being censored on YouTube. I did that interview with Father Mike Schmitz the other day about what is marriage and all that. Apparently, suggesting that the definition of marriage from the dawn of time until about 5.5 minutes ago, suggesting that that might not have been totally mistaken, that is enough to get you censored on YouTube. And that they're killing us on this, so I guess I'm probably not seeing you on YouTube. I'm probably seeing you on Facebook. If you're there, go to dailywire.com right now. What will you get? Well, it's $10 a month. $100 for an annual membership. Get the annual membership, you'll see why. You get me, The Andrew Klavan Show, The Ben Shapiro Show, no ads on the website, the conversation coming up with me, coming up around Valentine's Day, baby. Elisha's going to be hosting it. I'm going to give you all my love advice. The love doctor will be in the house, and I can promise you it will give you either romantic bliss or have you shunned and thrown out a window or something. So you get all that, but who cares? What you really get is this. Once those tanks start rolling, once those tanks are rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue, I hope they can float, because there are going to be so many leftist tears pouring out throughout our nation's capital. You need this leftist tears tumbler. We better send a lot of these down to Washington, D.C., or else we could have a national disaster on our hands. The leftist tears tumbler, the only vessel that is FDA, NSA, FBI, IMF approved to store your radioactive leftist tears, always salty and delicious, whether they be hot or cold. Go to dailywire.com right now. We'll be right back.